I got up on the top of the ridge. I found a few rubs up there, so I'm like, well, I'm gonna stand right here for a few minutes. Maybe he's still down below me because I hustled up there pretty quick,
Yep.
and wasn't I don't know 5 minutes later, and here comes this big 8 pointer with big orange looking horns
Yep.
walking right straight at me, and I'm like, oh, here it is. So pull up my gun.
Welcome back to another episode of Northwoods Whitetails Podcast. I'm sitting here in the Green Mountain State with
Nate Corey,
How you doing, bud?
good. You?
Doing good. Long day of work, and we're just sitting out here in my backyard, looking at the mountains, dreaming of some tracking snow. I know I am.
Big bucks.
And big bucks. Yeah. So to start this off, do you want to just tell the listeners a little bit about yourself, like what you do for work and your background, whatnot?
I'm a welder. Been a welder for like 11 years and like to deer hunt.
When did you start hunting, you think?
Probably like 2008, something like that, maybe.
And you started hunting over in New York a lot. I remember
I
you telling
started
me.
when I was younger, hunting over there, like farm country stuff.
Yeah, you want to
Much.
go into some detail about that? You had some good stories. You told me, like kind of this situation, like the lay of the land that you hunted and stuff.
Yeah, so the lay of the land was we had a neighboring property with like a 30-acre clear cut that bordered it with a brook that was in between us and big ag fields on our side and pretty much just a big drainage funnel and there was always big rubs down there and scrapes and sat there all the time pretty much and saw a lot of deer and kind of favored that spot for a long time. Shot some bucks over there.
Yeah, you shot a couple good ones over there, didn't you?
Yep.
And that property and a lot of the surrounding properties were in the QDMA program, right?
Yeah, it was all 6 points out to their ears or bigger. So you couldn't shoot anything smaller or you pretty much got like kicked out.
No kidding. And how was the hunting in the areas that did that QDMA? Was it like noticeably better than from like Vermont, let's say, or like areas where a lot of younger bucks are getting shot?
Oh yeah, you saw deer every day pretty much over there.
So the herd was just a lot healthier overall.
There was a lot of small bucks, but there was also, you had a handful of real nice bucks too.
Right. And the only area I've ever experienced that had like a antler restriction like that was down in the Catskills. And, I noticed it's 3 points on a side down there. And what I noticed was you saw a lot more buck sign just because those younger bucks weren't getting shot because they weren't legal. And, a lot of times those younger bucks are the first ones to get shot and they lay a lot of sign down. So it's just kind of cool to see more buck sign.
Yeah, because, you don't see stuff like that in Vermont.
No.
You don't see rub lines with like 100 rubs.
Yeah, you just don't. But I think the bucks aren't competing like they are in areas that a lot of the yearling and 2-year-old bucks are surviving.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's just a lot more competition when those bucks are getting a free pass every year. And, you're going to see, I think when there's more competition for bucks, there's a lot more rubs, a lot more scrapes, a lot more, my barn cat out here is getting all over us. Come on, kitty, get out of here. Yeah, so I thought that was interesting that you started hunting over there because I think that lit a really good fire, in you for deer hunting because when you started those like first years, you were hunting big sign, big bucks, which a lot of guys don't get that in the Northeast.
Yeah, it was pretty much. I shot a few small ones in Vermont before that, but pretty much once you get your first big one, that's what you want to keep shooting. So
right, so it really lit that fire in you to chase after big bucks and
badly.
Yeah, badly. Yeah, you're just as sick as I am.
Obsessed with it. Yep.
Yeah, and that's why we're buddies. I kind of wanted to roll into, how we became hunting buddies because I think it's kind of an interesting story. We used to hang out a lot at my uncle's dairy farm when we were younger, like right out of high school, because you were buddies with Connor Petrossi, who was like the hired hand
Yep.
on the farm. You guys were really close, and yeah, you want to like talk a little bit about those days, and those are kind of good days.
Yeah, pretty much I'd go over to the farm every day after school or work or whatever, and you were always there, and we'd start talking about deer hunting, and pretty much hit it off ever since then. And we, I don't know, we both liked big bucks and started
Yeah.
talking about big bucks, and we were talking about this ridge. You were talking about this ridge, and you were saying how, yeah, I found some big sign up there, and I found a tree stand way up in there. I'm like, huh, that's weird. It's my tree stand.
Yep.
So
Yep. And that was the first time that like it really clicked in my head. I was like, okay, like I'm gonna be friends with this guy because he gets after it like I do. Because that tree stand you had up on that ridge was no joke. You were up in there, and it was steep in a long ways.
oh yeah, like 2-3 miles.
2-3 miles, like up on this big ridge, and it was a ladder stand, wasn't it?
Hang on,
It
ladder
was a
stand.
yeah,
With sticks.
with
yeah.
sticks, yeah, and it was just for the life of me, I couldn't believe somebody had a stand up in there, and if I remember, it was a couple big cuts, right on the base,
right on the edges of
Yeah.
them, pretty much.
Well, it was just
That's some of my favorite stuff to hunt is cuts.
those secluded cuts. My cat is like molesting you right now. Get out of here! Come on, yeah. So that's when I knew. I was like, okay, Nate and I are probably going to be buddies, and we kind of hit it off from there. I know some of my favorite memories of hunting so far was we kind of tackled the Adirondacks, like
Oh, yeah.
when we were young. Like those were the first like travel hunts.
Yeah,
That we did.
we pretty much told each other that we weren't going to shoot anything small, and it was all going to be rack bucks. And
At that
first-
time.
yeah, at that time, early, and pretty much stuck to it. And I don't know, it's what we did. We just started passing up small bucks and shooting nicer ones.
Yep. Yeah, that's true. And man, we had some good times over there in the Adirondacks.
Yeah, it was fun.
It was a lot of fun. Do you want to tell a little story, about that area we were hunting, that buck that you had passed, and then the other one after? That's kind of a good series of events. That was the same year.
Yeah, so we were hunting this real big ridge over in the high peaks, and if anybody's ever hunted over there, they know there's no deer pretty much.
Yeah, not many.
You don't see anything. And so we were hunting this ridge. You were hunting some real big sign, and I went up on this finger and was hunting my way through. There's a bunch of blowdowns and stuff, so I'm looking real hard, and I see a buck standing up on the bank looking back at me. It was a giant 4-pointer, and I was like, well, we made this thing that we're not going to shoot small bucks. And I'm like, even though it's a real wide 4-pointer, it's not really what we were thinking of shooting over there. So
Right.
I passed on that buck. Probably shouldn't have. And then we got a kind of a storm. It was snowing and stuff. Like, what was it, a couple days later?
So I think it was the next day. We got a hotel that night.
Yep. We took your boat over.
Yeah, so I had it was like an 8-foot flat bottom plastic boat.
Hanging out the back of a small Toyota.
Yeah, and I remember we had a trolling motor and an old car battery,
Yep.
and boy, that thing was super legal.
Yeah, it was
It
bad.
was super legal. And we went across this like prominent lake. Like it's like a very like nice area.
Yeah, it had to be like what, probably
8 miles. Yeah, 8 miles across that lake. And do you remember I was like, should we go along the shore or just go across the middle? And we're like, screw it. We'll just go across the middle, because we're looking back at it, it was kind of dumb because we were wearing lacrosse boots.
I was wearing wool. You were wearing fleece, I think.
I had a wool jacket, but I had like jean material pants.
Yep.
They were camo, but they were like denim or whatever. And it started snowing, those big, huge, like springtime like snowflakes, kind of like sugar and snowflakes.
Oh, yeah.
But it was wet. Like
Well, it
when we
took
were,
us forever. We only had a trolling motor to get across it,
I
so
know,
it
and
took
we
us
were
probably
going
what,
into the wind too.
a couple hours to get across it,
It
probably.
did, and by the time we got across that thing, I was soaked.
Bad.
And when you're riding in a boat, you're not moving. You're just sitting there, and I was like blue. I felt like when we got to the other
Yeah,
side.
we had to start a fire and get all your clothes dried out before we could even start hunting.
Yeah, because
so,
it was like borderline dangerous. It was probably dangerous.
yeah,
I was
it
like
wasn't
blue.
good.
Like I was like you. I remember you were kind of like where you were like you're like pretty like you look like shit right now.
Yeah.
I was like I'm really cold. I'm
Yep.
shaking, But we learned. But that's kind of the funny thing about doing those big adventure type hunts that we did then is we were just very unprepared and learned a lot of good lessons. But anyways, you want to pick up from we got across the lake and it snowed probably what 3 inches of wet heavy
Yeah,
snow.
3 inches of like slush was on the ground pretty much, and you picked this spot. You were gonna head to on the map. I think Google Maps is what we were using at the time.
Yep.
You're like, I'm gonna go way out here. I'm like, okay, I'm not.
Yep.
I'm gonna hunt around the lake, kinda. So I start walking out this trail and cut a big buck track, and I was like, well, that'll work. So started following him, and not very long after that, I jumped him, and he keeps going up, heading up this ridge, and I keep seeing where he stops, and I haven't tracked very much at this point, and so he keeps looking back, and I'm like, well, he's standing there watching me come up behind him, and then he takes off, and then stay on his track. He keeps going, and I'm like, well, this isn't working. So I cut a huge circle up around him, and I got up on the top of the ridge. I found a few rubs up there, so I'm like, well, I'm gonna stand right here for a few minutes. Maybe he's still down below me because I hustled up there pretty quick.
Yep.
And wasn't, I don't know, 5 minutes later, and here comes this big 8-pointer with big orange looking horns walking right straight at me, and I'm like, oh, here it is. So pull up my gun, looking through the scope at him. I'm like, yep, he's gonna die. Can't see any crosshairs. Scope's right fogged over.
Oh
I'm like,
my gosh.
I'm like, yep, here's my big buck, and I can't even shoot him. So I'm standing there. Can't shoot this buck. He's still walking up towards me.
That is so
Yep.
like I can't even imagine, dude.
Oh, I
Like,
was mad.
yeah.
Yep. After that day, I switched to the peep sight.
Yeah, but anyways, he kept coming up the hill.
Yeah, and I couldn't shoot him. So he ended up running back down into the swamp.
So what did he stop and wind you or did he see you?
He
Or
saw me standing there.
like how close did he get?
Probably like 40 yards.
So he
I
just
probably
picked you
should have
up.
shot at him, but
Just like pointed and
Yeah, I
shot. Can you
should've,
imagine?
but-
Just smoke him right.
yeah,
That would have been crazy. Shoot from the hip.
yeah, it's definitely one of those ones that hurt.
You'll
Not
never forget
getting-
it.
No, that's for sure.
I bet you he was rubbing on a lot of alder
Yeah,
to have those
down in
orange
by
horns.
by that lake probably.
Yep.
It was
Because
a mess down there.
swampy nasty. Yeah, but I'd love to get back there one day.
Yeah, me too.
I don't think anybody ever hunted back in there.
No way. You're not
No.
walking back there.
You can't. Well, I mean, you could, but it'd be like 20 miles, and then
You have no
or
time
more.
to hunt if you walk back.
yeah, you'd have to like tent back in there, or you'd have to get across a river that you can't get across.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like, so it would only be like 4 or 5 miles from the side with the big river, but I mean, nobody's getting across that thing.
No, it's huge.
It's huge, and
untouched
it's
woods.
yeah, it's huge untouched woods, and boy, I think we should just go out there. One summer. We'll probably won't get to it this summer, but it seems like we don't have any time in the summer. We always
No,
have these
there
big
isn't.
plans, and then, but anyways, yeah, I'd like to get back there during summertime and set some cameras up, just because it might behoove us to.
They'd probably scare you what's back there.
Probably, when I was back there, I remember I went real deep, like from where we got the boat out or whatever. I headed just up and over the first one and then kind of into this huge basin, and I didn't cut any big tracks up in there, but there was quite a bit of buck sign for that kind of an area and a lot of smaller tracks. But I mean, it makes sense that I didn't see a bigger track because the big boy was down in by the lake.
Right.
You
That's
saw
where all
him.
the feed was, probably all the ferns and
I mean, dude,
whatever else grows around there.
it seems like water and deer is it's good mix
That's where
usually.
they are.
That's where they are a lot of times, and there's not much for mass crop back in those mountains. Maybe some beach, but it seems like they clean up the beach fairly early from what I've seen. In the bigger mountains, it seems like, well, you get up towards the spruce line and the beach, if there's any beach nuts, it's cleaned up by the end of September.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then you can kind of just come down the mountain with the later of the year or whatever. It seems like, the farther down the mountain you get, the later the nuts will drop or whatever. But I'm sure that's the same with acorns too. But I never really see acorns high. Not much.
Very often.
No.
Some spots maybe in New Hampshire and stuff where there's a lot of oak, but around here, not really, I don't think.
When it's funny, it must be like just once in every whatever 5 years you get some way up high, but it's hard to believe in some of these areas where there's oaks way up high that how they start growing up there. It's just,
right.
if there's never acorns, how do they grow? But
Most of the places we hunt, I think anyway, is probably the elevation. The trees are dwarfed.
yeah,
They're a lot shorter than.
definitely a lot shorter when it's up high. Yeah, but I mean, I know of some oaks that are real high, and it's funny, like you said, they're small. They're only like 20 feet tall, but they're
Yep.
huge. Around because they've never been cut because they're on some gnarly cliff. But yeah, those were good days. I think about those high peak adventures we had all the time.
Yeah, I'd like to shoot a big buck over there one year.
Me too. I mean, I've seen some good tracks and stuff over there. It just seems like we kind of got the New Hampshire bug and we never looked back.
Yeah, like
But-
there's that huge ridge you hunted over there that you did like 20 miles on.
Yep. Oh, I mean, I've
There's
done.
so much land over there.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, but I've done 12-mile loops over there on like 3-day-old snow and not cut a track before.
Oh yeah,
So it's like they're wicked pockety over there. Well, I mean, which is like anywhere, I guess, in the Northeast, but even more so over there.
yeah.
You
I would
know?
say High Peaks is one of the hardest places to kill a deer.
Oh, I think it is the hardest.
Yep.
Like just from what I've experienced, that's the lowest deer density I've ever seen.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree.
And maybe down in some houses over there somewheres, or like higher end neighborhoods, maybe there's a lot of posted land and there's more deer. But boy, in those big high peaks, there is just not a lot
Nothing.
going on. But I think there's some good ones though. But yeah. Anyways, you want to talk a little bit about last year's season? You had a pretty good season.
Yeah, I had a pretty good season. Started out in really New Hampshire. I pretty much just hunted New Hampshire, and then went to Maine. But passed on a few small bucks early in the season in New Hampshire, and then I ended up shooting a pretty decent 8-pointer with the rifle. Then after that, I headed right to Maine, and that's kind of like where I like to stay. I like to go to Maine a lot.
Yeah, you love Maine, which I don't blame you. It's pretty nice up there,
Feel
especially
like
with the time to go.
There's more deer. It seems like.
Oh, for sure,
wherever
the
I'm
habitat's there. I mean, if you
Yep.
have the habitat, you're gonna have the deer. And I just don't think, from what I've been told, I don't know, but from what I've been told, the winters haven't been as bad as maybe 20 years ago or 15 years ago. They were getting some real bad ones, and now they've been kind of mild. So and it seems like the guys up there are shooting the heck out of the coyotes. It seems like.
Yeah, it's got to
So
help.
it's got to help, So it only makes sense that the deer population's doing good, and the habitat. I mean, you can't go anywhere up there. It seems like without there being habitat.
No, exactly.
So yeah, because from what I've heard from guys talk about it, it seems like a lot of what happened to the herd like 20, 30 years ago or whatever is they like cut off all the wintering areas, and then they got some real bad storms,
Yep.
early 2000s or whatever, and it kind of dried up for a while. But I think it's definitely come around.
Oh yeah, I think tracking wise too. If you're looking to get into tracking or gain more experience tracking, I think Maine's the place to go because
Oh, for sure.
one, they get the snow, and two, I think it's one of the easiest places to get on a track quick
Mm-hmm.
by you can run the roads and get right onto one.
Yeah, that's good advice. I mean, it's true. I mean, we kind of like glamorize hunting the big mountains and stuff, it seems like, and it's just tough, man. Hunting the bigger mountains and stuff in the Adirondacks or the whites or the greens, it's like it's tough tracking in the mountains.
That's
You
the
go up,
hard part. If
yeah,
you don't get onto one, then you wasted a day really, because you figure anywhere we're gonna go is at least 2 to 3 miles
right,
before we even start hunting.
right,
So, I mean, you're already down 2 to 3 hours of the day.
right.
So
Especially if it's steep,
you're not really gaining any experience.
right?
You know, I mean, you are in a way for finding a track, but like actual being on the track,
You're talking about like track time, like
yes.
yeah. I mean, I feel like if you get good snow in northern Maine for a couple weeks and you're up there, you could get more tracking experience than a guy in this area could get in 10 years.
Yeah, exactly.
You
Yep.
know, and that adds up quick if you keep going up there, cuz it seems like the areas I've been up there too, it's just the land is so conducive to tracking. It's so the hills aren't as
I've never
like,
spent a half a day looking for a track in Maine.
yeah, that too, they're there.
It's
Yeah, they're
I
there.
spend the first day looking for like $3 to hunt, and then you know you can drive anywhere. Nobody's driven up there. Like it's
Yep.
huge.
It's endless.
Yeah,
Pretty
pretty
endless.
much.
Yep, it's cool. And there's a lot of gated roads up that way too. It seems. Can you imagine out some of those gated roads? There's some monsters probably
Oh, I'm sure of it.
like that. Areas that guys can't drive to.
Yep.
I'm sure there's some smashers, but I've heard that a lot of local guys get access to some of those gated roads. So
Oh, I'm sure they do.
that would help. That would help a lot.
Yep.
Yeah, but yeah, do you want to talk a little bit about the buck you killed in New Hampshire last year? How you got him and
Yeah. So I had a few cameras on a ridge that had a bunch of real big bucks on camera, and hunted it quite a bit. Hunted another spot quite a bit too, and I was like, it was early. It was like the first week of November, I think, and I was like, I'm just gonna hang out on this ridge and see if I can't bump into one. So that morning, I got up. I headed in before daylight, and I got up in there, and it's like 2.5 miles to get up into where I wanted to hang out.
for the morning?
Yep, for the
Yep.
morning. So I hung out there for a few hours, and I was like, well, I'm gonna go as high as I can, still hunt, and see what happens. So I hike up this ridge, and there's rubs everywhere, scrapes everywhere. Get up on top to this scrape that I knew about. I spent the whole day pretty much just still hunting through that to get up there.
Yep.
Like
Just taking your time,
taking my time,
picking the woods apart.
Yep. So I get up there and find this huge scrape and these rubs that are broken off, and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna sit here until dark. So I'm sitting there and I'm thinking of all that sign I just walked through, and I'm like, nope, I'm not gonna sit here any longer. I sat there for like an hour and a half. I'm like, I'm gonna still hunt back through the sign, but stay in the thicker stuff as I'm coming down off. And there's some cuts down lower. I'm like, I kind of want to work my way down towards those cuts. So it's almost dark. I get down there, spend a couple hours walking back down, and I look to my right down in by this cut. And there's a stone wall down there, and see this deer standing there. I'm like, oh. So I'm standing there looking at it, and it's got its head down, and it's got a big neck on it. And I'm like, well, it's got to be a buck. So I pull up the rifle, look through the scope, and I'm like, yep, it's got horns. So I set my stuff down, crawl through a ditch to get a good rest on a tree, kneel down, take my time, shoot. He flips right over. I'm like, that's nice. I haven't had one that's just tipped over in a long time.
Yeah.
Usually I have to shoot them a bunch, like every one of them a bunch.
Yep.
So I go to pump another one in. 2 bullets come up. My gun jams. I'm sitting there messing with the clip, and I look down there, and all I see is a foot, in a white belly. I'm like, okay, still messing with my clip. Look down at my clip. Look back at the deer. The deer is getting up and taking off. I'm like, what the hell happened, you know?
Yeah.
So I think I called you and called Connor, and Connor's like, "Well, you shoot one?" I'm like, "Yeah, I think so." So uh, I'm like, "I can't find any blood." I walked down there. There's no blood,
But it
no
was raining
hair.
too, right?
Yeah, it was raining real hard.
Yeah.
So I was kind of nervous about that, and I shoot a 35 Whalen, so I was like, if I shot him and he went down, it had to be a pretty good shot, I would think.
Yep.
And so I got a hold of Connor. He came up. He met me there, and we're looking around for this deer for a long time,
Yep.
and can't find him. Can't find him. Find
I
some
was getting the
hair.
play-by-play.
Yep.
I was laying in bed. It was like it was late,
Yeah, you had to work, I think.
of course.
So that kind of sucked. But,
Yep.
So we're looking for this deer. We spend a long time looking for him. Finally, Connor sees a deer laying there, and he's in his bed. I'm like, "Yep, that's him." So shoot him again. He gets up, takes off. I'm like, "Okay, here we go." Shoot him again. Gets up, takes off. Did that like 2 or 3 times, but he kept getting closer to the truck, so that was pretty nice.
There you
And,
go.
finally got him. Took some pictures with Connor. My first buck, pretty much with Connor. That was
Yep.
pretty nice. He helped me drag it out. That's always nice too. First buck at camp.
Yep. Our camp that we built last summer. What did he weigh, Nate?
149. I think it
149.
was.
He had a nice rack on him though.
Yeah, not bad.
Probably like I think he's gonna be like. Did you ever have him scored?
No.
I think he's probably like 112. Nice solid 8-pointer.
Yeah, he might be close to that.
I think he's right around there.
Yeah, probably
112.
112.
Which is, I mean, that's a solid buck.
Oh yeah.
I'll never let a 110 incher in the mountains
no, me
go.
Neither. If
Kidding
I
me?
see a nice rack, I still stick to that.
Heck yeah,
shooting it,
man.
yeah.
110 incher. I mean, Vermont record book, Northeast Big Buck Club record book. That's the minimum.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's a
Yep.
good buck.
I'll shoot that every day.
Oh,
anywhere.
of course. I mean, the real big ones. I mean, unless you're like specifically hunting one and he's right in there, it's luck.
Oh,
to
yeah.
get the real big ones, it's like because a lot of times you see one that's 110 plus, good rack, he's getting shot. So those real big ones when you're tracking or whatever, it's just a lot of it's luck. But the big ones are out there.
Spend your time where you think you need to spend it, and hopefully it pans out.
I mean, I think that's a big thing. If you want to try to target big bucks in the Northeast, you have to kind of really figure out where your best odds of seeing a big buck is going to be.
Yeah, that's why when I came down off that ridge, I didn't really spend a whole lot of time in those hardwoods coming down off, because first thing I thought coming down off was this is all nighttime.
Yep.
Activity. So I wanted to get in the thicker, darker woods and spend my time still hunting that.
When you're deer hunting, you're constantly making decisions like tracking or still hunting. You're making tons of decisions, on the fly. And if you make the right decisions, you end up with a buck. You make the wrong ones, which most of the times you do, you're not going to end up with a buck. But the decisions you made were the right ones. Like you're up high and you're sitting there and you're like, wow, there's way more sign down low. A lot of guys maybe would have just sat there all day because it took them all day to get there. Why not?
I did like 10.5 miles that day before I shot him up there.
That's a good day, man. And that mountain's no joke either. So
yeah, it's pretty good size.
Yep. Well, man, we got to do it again this year. Well, you got to do it again this year. I got to do it, period.
I'm ready.
Yeah. Dude, me too. Oh my gosh. Been so busy with work and
That's how it is. Work until you got the time off.
Yep. Man, I'm itching though. I want to get after it.
Gotta
I'm ready
get
for
you in
bow
Maine.
season. Yeah, I think I'm
Tracking.
going to go to
Yep.
Maine this year, and you kind of found a really good area.
Yep, I think you'll kill a big one.
Yeah, I'd love to, man. I want to get that patch. Should have had it a couple years with you.
Yeah.
That's a
And
good
then
story.
I shot the buck.
Yes,
The
you
following
did.
year,
The following year, you got him. That's a good story. But yeah, I'd love to get the patch. But
It'll
my goal,
happen.
my goal is, I'd like to get a patch or a 200-pound buck in Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. Like, I think that'd be like a great accomplishment.
Yeah, 100%.
So that's the goal. That's my long-term goal.
It's doable.
Oh yeah, yep. All right, man. Well, thanks for sitting down with me, and
Yeah, no problem.
we'll have to do it again. All right, boys. See you on the next one.